been for boxing fans especially.
Hi guys, welcome back to Inside Boxing Brain. It's Harry and I am back for another video. Now today's video is essentially in reaction to the breaking news about Conor Benn, and I also want to touch on and talk a little bit about this weekend's card with Jake Paul and Anderson Silva. So firstly, we've just had some breaking news from the British Boxing Board of Control. So Conor Benn has officially relinquished his boxing licence and is no longer a professional licensed boxer with the British Board of Control. Now, over the last 2 weeks, the fans have been holding their breath waiting for some official announcement to come from the Conor Benn camp, either from Matchroom Sports or Eddie Hearn, in regards to how the trial and the investigation is panning out, whether the B sample has been tested and what the results of that test were, and whether or not Conor Benn was going to stand and fight his case to prove his innocence off the back of his Instagram post where he said to all of his fans, "I hope the apology is as loud as the disrespect." So, within a week, what has happened? Conor Benn has officially relinquished his boxing licence. Now, there's a few pieces of information that have come out around why that has happened and how it's happened. We still have no information on whether or not Conor Benn is actually innocent or whether he knowingly and purposefully took performance-enhancing drugs. And we've had no indication from him or any of the camps if the B sample has been tested and what the outcome of those tests were. So, as fans, again, it leaves us in limbo and we don't know what's going on. But there has been some small pieces of information that have come out, and the British Boxing Board of Control released a statement today in which they said that last Friday Conor Benn had an official hearing at the British Boxing Board of Control with his legal team and their legal representatives to talk about the adverse finding in his drug test. Now, unfortunately, Conor Benn did not show up to this hearing and was AWOL, not present, which led the British Boxing Board of Control to say that they cannot make a decision in his favour or to support his case if he isn't present at the case to even justify what had happened. On the same day, Conor Benn terminated his British Boxing licence, Board of Control licence. So it just doesn't look very positive at the moment, and it doesn't look like he's even trying to really fight his innocence or prove his innocence. He's not been very forthcoming at all ever since the news broke and the fight with Chris Eubank Jr. was cancelled. So all we've really been doing is holding our breath, trying to find information on what may be happening and what results may have been found in the B sample. But as a matter of fact, that B sample has not been tested and it won't be tested. And the reason why is because Conor Benn is guilty. And the longer this plays out, the more I believe that there must have been some wrongdoing, because at no point over the last month has he provided any information to his fans or even any support or words of encouragement to his fans to say thank you for backing me and thank you for being behind me. It's all been silence, smoke and mirrors, hiding behind his bodyguards, who in this case is Eddie Hearn, who, let's be honest, can't answer a question straight. He was literally just on TalkSport, just listening to this, and the interviewer asks him, "So, can you clean it up for British fans? Why has the B sample not been tested, and why have we not had any official results from you guys in regards to the B sample?" And he skirts around the question so blatantly that it's just, as a fan, it's almost shocking to hear, because you sat thinking, you've not answered the question, you've not attempted to answer the question, and you've given a very corporate, legal jargon-filled answer. And it's getting to the point now where it's starting to piss fans off. Like, why are we paying for pay-per-view fights? Why are we paying for these fighters to box when we don't get the fights that we want and we don't have any consistency or transparency from these fighters? So I really feel like boxing is in a very dark place at the moment, and we still have no clear route or answers in terms of what's happening with the Conor Benn case, and was he guilty or was he not? So for me, I'm getting to the point now where I'm no longer particularly interested in whether or not he's guilty or not guilty. What I'm more interested about now is what decision's going to be made. Is he going to be banned for failing his test, or has he relinquished his British Boxing Board of Control licence so that the board can't ban him? It looks very fishy, extremely suspicious, and I really think this is doing a lot of damage to the Benn name, but in particularly Conor Benn, because all the British fans were behind him. He was the next sweetheart of British boxing. He was going to be the next Amir Khan. And given the circumstances, I think 90% of his fan base are now turning against him. So massively disappointed in the way that they've dealt with it. Massively disappointed in Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn. I used to be such a big fan of Matchroom Sports and Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn. And over the last 4 weeks, I've slowly fallen out of love with them, having watched their interviews. And I'm not embarrassed to say I was a fan, because we're all boxing fans. Everybody who is interested in the sport is a boxing fan. And for me, I'm one of them people who pays for pay-per-views. Like, I enjoy spending my money on things that I like doing. And paying for a pay-per-view fight, knowing that you are contributing towards the purse and the overall revenue for a fight, it makes you feel like you deserve at least a little bit of honesty and transparency from these promoters and the people that are hosting these events. And if anything, all we've seen from Conor Benn is the fact that he isn't honest and he isn't going to provide people with the relevant information that they need to make an informed decision on whether or not they think he's telling the truth. So I want to park the bus on that there, because until there is a formal announcement or a statement from their camp, it's all just speculation. But it's not doing them any favours at this time, and I think it's damaging the sport, not only for us as a generation, but for generations to come, because many parents are going to see what's going on within boxing at the moment and all this drug scandal, and they're just going to say, we don't want our children to be involved in this. A, they're risking their life. B, there doesn't seem to be the right precautions or measures in place to prevent people from cheating. This is a sport where you can legally take another man's life or another woman's life. So it needs to be spot on. There can't be any margin of doubt or room for error. Which is why I really think that Eddie Hearn is going to pay the price for not being transparent and not giving the fans, who essentially put him in the position that he is in, because if it wasn't for us as fans supporting his fighters or paying for the cards that he puts on, Matchroom Sports would still only strictly be in the darts, and Matchroom Boxing would not have grown into the mammoth that it is today. So let's just park the bus on that conversation there. I am interested to know what you all think in terms of, do you think Conor Benn is guilty? Do you think he's innocent? And what do you feel about how they've dealt with this entire process, from the adverse finding to today, where he's officially now thrown his British Boxing Board of Control licence in the bin? So yeah, keen to hear and speak to you all about what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying this video, and drop me a comment and a like on this video as well. I'm going to move very swiftly onto this weekend's card. We actually have a fight between Jake Paul and Anderson Silva, Anderson the Spider Silva, which I'm super excited about. Again, YouTube boxing seems to be outperforming professional boxing, which is sad to say, but we're here, and these are the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So in summary, I have to say that this is actually an exciting fight. I know Anderson Silva is 47, turning 48. He's at that age where he isn't youthful. He doesn't have that, young, energetic spirit about him anymore. But what he does have is years and years of experience and skill and the style to cause any combat fighter problems. I've watched it's not the gloves are off, it's sort of like an all access. Excuse me. It's an all access that was done on Showtime. And they're following both fighters, and for the first time, I've actually seen Jake Paul's attitude towards a fight be completely different to his previous fights. For the first time, it looks like, and I'm perceiving it as, Jake Paul is showing Anderson Spider a lot of respect. And this all stems from the fact that Anderson Silva is one of the greatest combat athletes of all time. His legacy and knockout streak within the UFC is still unmatched to this day. And there hasn't been another combat athlete who's been able to combine different combat techniques, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's boxing, whether it's kickboxing or taekwondo or wrestling, combine it and be able to deliver that in one simple package that is just devastating to watch within the ring. He is a remarkable fighter and he's a remarkable athlete, but I am concerned that he is getting to the point in his career now where his best days are behind him, and that power that you have, that snap that you have, that ability that you have to be able to absorb punishment and absorb damage starts to diminish over time. So I really hope that Father Time hasn't caught up to Anderson Silva and he still has the skill, the speed, the agility and the power to be able to compete with a much younger, more athletic and stronger man. Because let's be honest, Jake is a very strong man. People still picture him as the Disney kid, but that was years ago. He's completely changed as a person. His physique has changed, his mentality has changed, and his hand-eye coordination and boxing ability has changed. As a matter of fact, it's improved considerably, and you've seen that through his career, that from fight to fight, he seems to be getting better and better. Now, it's difficult to say, is that completely down to his training camp, his coaches, his nutrition and dietitian, and his training, or is it down to the fact that he's still such a novice that it's only normal to make considerable improvements in your first few fights? And he hasn't been inside a fight or in the ring with anybody who is known for their punching ability or their boxing ability. Tyrone Woodley, again, legendary welterweight UFC fighter, but he was a legendary grappler. When it came to striking, he was never a world-class striker. Yeah, he put a lot of people out, but that was because of his raw power. He used to overwhelm his opponents. It didn't come down to technique, speed, or style. He was a very wild puncher, and when you're boxing, it's all about technique and ability to measure range and understand when to throw a punch, when to counter it or parry it. Whereas in the UFC, it seems to be more of a case of just throw as much as you can on the target and use different strategies to avoid the punches that are coming back, whether that's grappling and taking them down, or whether that's using your jiu-jitsu or your taekwondo to bring the fight into closer range to try and take the fight away from being strictly a striking match. So it's difficult to say whether or not Jake Paul has been improving exponentially or if he's just been taking advantage of fighters who aren't used to having to look and measure and keep their eye on strikes that are coming towards them over 12 rounds or 8 rounds, whatever the 10-round fights that they're having within YouTube boxing. I don't want to come across like I'm a bit of a hater for Jake Paul. I'm actually quite a fan. I think what he's managed to do within the sport is remarkable. Yes, it's not got anything to do with his boxing ability. It's all down to the fact that he is a social media influencer. But the fact that he's been able to capture an audience, a demographic, and he's been able to pull that demographic towards the boxing game does make me think that he is good for the sport. I do think he overhypes his fights a lot, and he makes out as if he's this amazing ticket seller. But this week's event is still not sold out. I've been on Ticketmaster and I've actually looked at the stadium, and there's still around about a third of tickets or seats which are not filled. And for somebody who apparently has got, 27 million followers on his Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all combined, it makes you think that, is he struggling to sell tickets, or are people just not buying into the hype? Either way, I'm going to buy the pay-per-view and I am interested to watch it. My official prediction for the fight is a victory for Anderson Silva. I really do think that Anderson has still got enough in the tank to be able to compete with a younger, stronger man, due to the fact that his skill, his technique and his boxing IQ or combat IQ is just levels above where I think Jake Paul is at this moment. Now, having said that, it doesn't take away from the fact that I know that Jake Paul has got that knockout power, and if he manages to catch Anderson Silva with a punch very similar to the one that he caught Tyrone Woodley with, I do think that it could be lights out. But having said that, I've watched a few of Anderson Silva's fights. He had a fight with Chavez Jr. and within that fight he really demonstrated to me that he could not only compete, but he has the right skill set to be able to dominate within the boxing landscape and within the boxing game. It's not all about who hits the hardest, and I think Jake Paul is slowly but surely going to realise that when you are equally matched against somebody whose skill for skill is either better or equal to you, it's not just a case of power. It comes down to technique, it comes down to ring IQ, it comes down to your experience being in those situations and being under pressure. So again, I think it sets us up for a brilliant rematch. There is no shame in losing to a legend like Anderson Silva. And if anything, I think it will actually raise Jake Paul's profile, because he's been in there with one of the greatest combat athletes of all time. And if he does lose to him, at least he can say that at least I tried to compete against the best. He's had a lot of opponents drop out from his fights, notably Tommy Fury and then the Hassim Rahman Jr. So a lot of fans, I think, are negative towards Jake Paul now because they feel that he is a very difficult person to negotiate with. And there's always a lot of mystique, mystery, hype and negativity around the way he writes his contracts or the way his lawyers negotiate the T's and C's within those contracts. But putting all that to one side, my official prediction, yes, as you've just heard, is an official win by Anderson Silva. And I do believe that he can stop a Jake Paul. One thing that I've noticed about Jake Paul over the last few fights is that he gasses very quickly. He has stamina for maybe the first 6 minutes of the fight, and once that stamina is gone, his punches are very sluggish. He telegraphs his punches, and the only thing that he really maintains is his power, but the speed and the agility of hand and foot slows down considerably. And unfortunately on this occasion, unless he's managed to address his cardio issues, I think it's going to play directly into Anderson Silva's hands. I do see this fight going over 5 rounds because I think that it's going to be competitive for the first 2 or 3. The first couple of rounds I think might be just feeling them out rounds, and I think from round 3 to 6 is where Anderson Silva is going to use his experience, his ring IQ and his overall combat ability to be able to break Jake Paul's will, break his heart, and show him that he can't just use his power and rely on his power to win every single fight. So I'm super interested. I'm going to buy the pay-per-view for that as well. And I'm going to do a live stream in terms of a watch along, because I feel like it'd be really interesting to see how that fight pans out. Guys, thank you for watching my videos. I've dropped a link in the bio below to a product that I'm using currently, which is keeping my skin super clean and super fresh. Thank you for tuning in. Drop me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel as well. I'm really trying to get to that milestone of 500 subscribers. And then once we're at that milestone, we can try and push to that 1,000. I really appreciate everybody who leaves me a comment on these videos. I take the time to respond to you all individually. And once we reach that 1,000 subscribers, I'm doing a boxing giveaway. So I've managed to get my hands on some professional boxing gloves and some professional boxing pads. And what we're going to do is pick some comments at random, and we're going to send you some boxing equipment valued up to £300. So we're not going to be cutting any corners, getting any cheap shit. It's all going to be the best of the best. So yeah, that's all from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Apologies I haven't been online for the last few days. I've had such a busy few days of travelling. I was in London on Monday. The weekend I was spending time with family, and I didn't get the chance to jump on and do one of these videos. But I'm going to try do bi-weekly videos, so at least 2 a week, on a few different subjects. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks for watching. It's Harry from Inside Boxing Brain. And yes, you guessed right, we're going to be back for another video very soon. Peace.